Well, welcome back to the San Luis Obispo Railroad Museum. We had some technical difficulties on our first effort with Sid Marcus and his wife Isabel. As I recall, Sid signed on with the Southern Pacific in 1947, and he was a signal helper and maintainer, and I don't know all his job titles, but
Well, I
he had
had
quite
known
a...
as foreman at time and lead man, but just temporary on the foreman jobs.
So hopefully Sid can tell us about some of the things that happened during his employment, and his wife can chime in and
Jump in.
tell us about being the family member of a railroad man.
Okay.
Well, I started out with Southern Pacific May 26, 1947. The first job as a signal helper, which they always called us grunts. And started out at Hope Ranch in Santa Barbara, just outside of north of Santa Barbara. That's Hope Ranch. They had a siding there, and we were living in outfit cars. Of course, we call them outfit cars. The public calls them box cars. And we started there. It was on a reconstruction project of renewing pole lines from Santa Barbara to Santa Margarita. We dug holes, we put the poles in it, then we climbed the poles and attached the wires to the cross arms. And then on reconstruction, we did reconstruction of moving signals, because they moved the distance from the steam days up to the more modern diesel days. And then we start out at Santa Barbara, come all the way to Santa Margarita. And through the process, I advanced from a signal helper to an assistant signalman, and later years to a signalman, and then to a maintainer's job here at San Luis Obispo. We had worked from Santa Barbara to San Jose, and most of the work was signal things. We had a signal foreman and usually five in a gang. After we finished the completion of it, moving of the signals and all, we went back to construction of modern. The length of the signals went out different because of the trains up to speeds. And then from there, most of our travel on the rail was by motor car, what they call a motor car. And a lot of it, we had a push car behind the motor car when we held any of our equipment. And then later years, modernized, we've got trucks and trailers to do our heavy work. Most of my work was done from Santa Barbara to San Luis Obispo for the years, but we worked in Watsonville, we worked in San Jose, but our outfit cars were parked in little town of Coyote, and we worked from Coyote into San Jose on the reconstruction of downtown San Jose of the freeways going through. We helped move signals for the overheads in San Jose yards, and then we come up to Watsonville, did reconstruction in Watsonville. That's when the programs went in with the state of California and Southern Pacific on new crossings for automatic gates. We installed many automatic gates from San Francisco to Santa Barbara. Our biggest project that brings me to mind is the Mission Street underpass in Santa Barbara. That was a big project for Southern Pacific and the city of Santa Barbara. It was underground, had to go under the railroad tracks at Mission Street, we had to do a lot of construction of going underground with our signal lines and cable. We had to wait for them to get the street underpass to go, and then we went underneath the street and then out into Santa Barbara with cables. Then we had, a lot of our work was done on street crossing, putting in automatic gates. Just like another memorable one was out here on Orchid Road. We had quite a hard time there because the city didn't want us to dig up any their street at that time. Dave Romero was the city engineer then, and we had, so there was a culvert there, which very rarely we ever run a cable in a culvert. Well, we got rigid conduit, galvanized rigid conduit pipe, went through the culvert. And some years later, when we modified it more, we took that conduit out of that culvert, and we were modernized. We had pumped with a jack. We pushed it, well, it's not push, but we shoved the conduit with underneath the ground. Hope we didn't hit a rock and come out the other side. We'd have to dig out the other side to find out where we're coming. But Orchid Road was quite a project for us. And then we went on to Guadalupe, on the big crossing at Guadalupe. And then from there, after that, all that was through, we had all our projects, and we started modernizing that from line into cables going underground. We did a lot of that work. Then projects down at Vanderburg, where they would go across the main line with into the different missile locations. We had to do all that and widen them and put automatic gates on those crossings. Oh, then we went on. Then I got a permanent signal maintainer job here from San Luis Obispo to Waldorf. So Waldorf is just the next siding south of Guadalupe. We had that. Then from later years, I went on and come up a missile program at Vanderburg, and I was about ready to move to Watsonville because my oldest daughter was going to school. So my supervisor says for me to hold on, that there was a missile program coming up on Vanderburg. And this was all new to us. So I waited and I got that job, and my headquarters was at Guadalupe, and I worked the missile program from Casmalia to Southern California, near Lima Beach. On orbit shots, they'd have to have two maintainers. Myself was at Casmalia, and at Southern would be this Southern maintainer. That we'd go on duty 3 hours prior to a missile shot. Sometimes we stayed there longer than 3 hours because of the conditions of the following of the missile going to Kwajalein Islands in the South Pacific. Had to wait if there's any ships in there, and of course if any train would come, because they operated under a federal rule that you couldn't stop a train, it had to go. So at times we had to stop the train a few times, not all the time. And then I was, most spectacular one is, I don't remember what year, but it was Discoverer 5, fifth to go into orbit. Well, it didn't make it.
Not even close.
Nope, they just got up out of the danger zone, and we call them blowing them up, they call them burning them up. And that was really a catastrophe as far as stopping trains and all, because some of the pieces of that orbit shot went as far as almost into Lumpo. There's a siding called Vermella, and it was just about to that location. And when I come patrolling, after these shots, we patrol the track with a motor car. Well, I come to which is the east end, we call it south end of Surf. There was a piece about 14 by 6 on the track and burning. And the Air Force wouldn't let you get near it because of the chemicals and all that. And got that all situated, and got new ties where they burnt some of the ties. The missile, that Minuteman missile was on the north end of Vandenberg. They were at right opposite of Casmalia, and that was which is still the Minuteman site. But I could tell a few minutes before the missile would come out of that silo, because all the dogs in Casmalia would start howling because of the vibration coming out of those missile silos. We had one Minuteman go off course just coming out of it and skimmed along and went about a mile and a quarter, maybe more, skimming right at the ground, but it was about 500 feet from the main line, almost back into Tangier. It just went floating on top of the ground, and fire all over the base. That was one of the biggest things. We had to stop trains there. Mainly was Amtrak, or Daylight we call it then. It had to wait at Surf until they got everything under control. There was fire all over the south end of the base. Then, of course, the derailments, we've had a few of the derailments throughout my year. The most spectacular derailment I ever was on was at Surf, California. The only time in all my experience years of work for the railroad was 3 trains and 1 derailment. There was a mainline train coming down, and it had dragging equipment, picked up the dragging equipment, hit the house track at Surf, and they had a train in the siding, and that main line, he was westbound coming to San Luis Obispo, and derailed there. And on the house track, we call it the Lumpo Local, which comes out of Lumpo, it was there. So all 3 trains was involved in one accident, and all 3 trains, except one, the train that was in the siding at Surf, they derailed just where on the impact of the derailment. But the Surf, Lompoc Local had just destroyed that local. It hit the engine, hit the caboose, turned over, and it was sitting on the top, which I've got pictures of that. And still to this day, the conductor off that Lompoc Local was in that caboose, lives in Santa Margarita. Any questions?
Well, I'm curious, you said you were moving signals. I assume they were moved farther apart over the years.
Yes.
And I wondered if you worked on the transition from semaphore signals to the searchlight signals, which themselves have just about gone
that was
these
in
days.
47 through that year that we took the semaphore down into the searchlight. And that was moving a lot of that space, respacing. We call it respacing because of the from steam to the monitor, where they travel faster.
Now, I remember one incident that you talked about before, and I'm really curious because I don't know the circumstances under which you met your wife, but you said some young men working on the pole line got in trouble because they might not have been dressed appropriately for the...
That was at Linton, California.
She wasn't on the train
No,
that went
no.
by. Okay.
I've only been on the train about 3 times in
Yeah,
his
we're
42
at,
years.
Linton, California. Linton was siding between Gaviota and Goleta, and that's where the afternoon passengers would meet. At that time, we had a morning passenger and an afternoon passenger, which were the daylights. We were working there, and we didn't pay attention. All at once, Mr. Mays, he was our signal supervisor. He come down, he says, we got a problem with you boys. So that's why he says, well, we got a report off the daylight that there was some workmen naked. And of course, we had a quite nervous foreman, and he says, I don't know what you're talking about. He went on, he said, well, somebody on the train. Well, myself and 2 of the other fellas were young, getting suntans and working, and we had our shirts off. And of course, sitting in the train looking down, they could see us naked from the top
To your waist.
To waist, yeah. So he was quite pleased with that report. That we had a lot of instances, burglaries, had vandalism. One little vandalism deal was out here, Edna, between Edna and Pismo. They called me, said red signals and all. Well, some juveniles got out there and they opened the battery boxes and they took the battery out of it. At that time we had battery boxes batteries that had handles we could move after the glass. So these children, 4 or 3 of them, would pick it up and drop the battery into Owl Creek, which is comes down out of Rio Grande Valley into Price Canyon. So it ended up between the investigation of the police department, or the special agent we call them, our police department, and the sheriff's office, found out 3 little kids that was going on an adventure. They saw it there and they broke in the battery box. We call it a battery box. It was a cement box with a lid on it, and took the battery out, and they were having a good time and dropped it off the Owl Creek Bridge into the water, made a big splash. So of course that put the signals to red because we had to keep those batteries to keep that going, and that turned out to be a long process. One little guy talked, the other little guy didn't, and then finally all of them talked. And the special agent thought he really got a big feather in his hat because he thought he had solved the problem. Well, the sheriff's office was the one because they knew more about those kids than we did. And another incident happened is in Price Canyon. That bridge on that, we call it the 10 degree between San Luis and Pismo. I got a call out from the dispatcher that the signal's red. So I had a pickup and an outside speaker, and I parked the pickup on Price Canyon Road instead of going down the right-of-way. And I come off the bank and I was in there, and here was bullets going overhead. It was some, they had across from Price Canyon Bridge, they had at that time, Pismo had a garbage company in Price Canyon, a garbage pit. So everything, I crawled back up, and I got my pickup, got on the radio, called San Luis. All at once, I had a lot of company.
You didn't get extra pay for being shot at.
No,
did you?
no.
He
But
ran fast.
ended up on the investigation afterwards, it was one of the sheriff's captain's boy, and another two kids was at the garbage company shooting at bottles. Well, they come over and they even, I don't know if it was ricochet or a deliberate, went into one of our little relay boxes and hit the relay and broke the relay. Of course, it lost power, and that's what put the signals to stop. So,
Well, in our Emily Street yard, we had one of those, I think we still do, one of those concrete battery boxes. And the hive of bees decided that would be a good place to set up housekeeping. So that was kind of an adventure to have bees living in there. Did you ever have bees, wasps, or ants?
wasps, a lot of wasps, yellow jackets especially. Yeah. So a lot of that is, I've even had a snake, a gopher snake in a battery box. So, of course, they're friendly. They don't do nothing.
I bet it was nice having just an 8 to 5 job where you could always count on, you could go home
I
and
never had one.
never have to worry about the weather or the dark of night
No.
or
When
not snow probably,
Yeah.
but everything else.
as the girls got older, when he would get home, he'd say, "No phone calling, because I'm on call." And that was like for I don't know how many years. He was always on call. Well, then we finally got them another phone. I got to play so and so. I want to call so and so. But and he used to say, "I'm on call, and I got a call." And I said, "What is that?" And he said, "Well, a call is 2 hours and 40 minutes. If I can solve the problem within that time, fine. If not, then it continues on. But if I find it within half an hour, I come home." But it was always like, I'm on call, no one on the phone. He did have a lot of, there were a lot of fires, and the especially one I remember was up in the tunnels. There's 7 tunnels up there on Cuesta Grade, and he was taking a bunch of fellows up to fight the fire, and they went through this tunnel that was just full of smoke. He said, "We did not know what we were going to encounter on the other side, but we had to go through." And he said they were all behind me praying as loud as they could.
So he came home smelling of smoke. But
Yes, that's.
But another time,
Yeah.
I call it the putt-putt. It was a motor car. He's fighting the fire because he said the fire would go over the tracks just like a snake slithering. So just move right over it. And everybody's kind of yelling at him, and he's fighting the fire in front. He turns around, and the motor car's on fire behind him. So he said, "Oh golly, I became a fireman very quickly."
now I think just about everybody who used a motor car has a story, maybe not involving themselves, maybe just somebody they knew, where the motor car got demolished because they
Mr.
neglected to get it out of the way.
I worked with the expert on those. If I remember right, he either throughout the years, he either had 5 or 7 motor car
Well,
accidents.
but that's a record in my
Yes.
experience. I've never heard of
Yes.
more than 2 or 3.
Oh no, and he was never pulled out of service because he was a hardworking man, and most of the time he was fighting to clear the signals, and all except one time he got it in the fall. But one time I was with him at Honda, and come along and says, "Frank, I'm getting a little worried." I said, "This fog has got it." He said, "Oh, don't worry." He says, the trains won't move with red signals." Well, we come around a curve, and there was a big headlight looking at me. I slid it off one side, and he went on the other. So when came the investigation, when we're on those motor cars, we'd have what they call a lineup, telling you which train, when to expect and all. Well, this operator forgot that one train. And that's the one that I always thought he would get fired over, but he it was a assistant train master gave him the time of the running of the trains instead of the operator. So he skedoodled out of that pretty good because our union had a pretty good attorney. So
No demerits on that one. Now,
No.
did you get demerits? Not you personally, but did signal maintainers get
Oh, yeah.
demerits like
Oh.
operating?
operating motor car, we had surf maintainer I had to go down there for a month because he got demerits. And on the investigation, we were short of personnel and they were wanting me to another place. So he came back. But the demerit system with 90 would fire you. Well, they'd give you 30 and you'd work 2 demerits a month off. So some of those guys had some long goes on demerits. At that time, the experienced men was working problems that kept everything going. They at that time when I was working for at that time is you were the wheel. You weren't the spoke in the wheel because you ran the stuff. And of course we had most of our signal officials were people that come out through rank. And they were the best people to work for because they had the actual experience and they knew what was going on. Later years, we come along, after Mr. D.J. Russell left the company as a president, they started getting graduates. I had a very dear friend of mine, he had an engineering degree, nothing on the railroad. He went to come out of college and he's bumming around. He says, I'll try the railroad. Well, he started out as a divisional officer. And a lot of times he'd come and says, hey, what's this? What can I do? That. I says, you're the boss. He says, yeah, but you got the experience. And he ended up as a division engineer before he passed on. But we've had...
Thanks to some on-the-job training.
On-the-job training. A lot of it, well, you know, I haven't got nothing against education, but some people will not take advice. You'll tell them and they'll overlook it. I know what I'm doing. Go ahead. Pretty quick they come up and say, well, how come you didn't tell me? Well, you didn't ask.
Now, you didn't have a demerit system at home, did you, where you came home with creosote on your clothes and
I
you
got-
got demerits for that, or splinters in your trousers? Or,
Silver paint.
oh, the silver, the
Silver
aluminized paint.
Yes. Where have you been? I've been painting, can't you tell? You know? And
Well, he didn't expect you to get the silver paint out of his work
no,
clothes. did he?
he had a lot of overalls that became different colors as they got older. He even worked with orange paint sometimes too.
Another thing that just come to my mind is winter of 1969, I believe. Surf bridge going across the San Ynez River there. I got called. The one maintainer, the CAS maintainer was on the other side of the bridge with a motor car, and I was at CAS with a motor car. Well, he couldn't come home. And the center pillar of the big bridge was what we call float. So we had George, he walked across the bridge to bring him home, and he was raised in Oklahoma, and he says, I was one scared Okie coming across that bridge because it had a kind of a dog leg where it floated out a little bit. And I was on my side, and I could see a company official coming, and he was going where the welder was, and he says, told the welder, he says, cut the rail here. All them old time Mexican laborers that knew the years, don't cut it, don't cut it. Well, he cut it. I had the welder cut it, and it shoved the pillar out. But one rail hung at that pillar. So come along after everything was over with, everything was time. All at once, that official disappeared. So I asked Ron, he says, oh, they transferred him out. I mean, they got rid of him because he should have known better not to cut the rail. So we got that all fixed up. And later years, they come in with rock they brought from Montana or Colorado. It was a lead-based out of mines, and they put in most of the pillars there. I remember they put there, and the one at Nassau at Camp Roberts at the East Garrison. There's another one. They put a lot of that into around the base of those pillars. I don't know, was it lead or iron in the thing, which was good.
The local rocks weren't heavy enough, so they
No. See, they had the metal. That's what I understood. They come out of mine cuttings, and then they was extra heavy on it.
keep the pilings from washing away. Yeah.
Then we come into the era of the ribbon rail. That's another thing. We had 1,452 feet in a section. Well, they had up at Cholar, California, just south of Salinas. That's where they set the welding mill. Well, they experimented along with that, and about that, they welded up, but they wouldn't preheat it when they put it back on the ground. So later years, as they processed along, they used that, and they'd have a machine on the top of the rail with a 500-gallon tank of propane or butane, and they'd heat the rail and expand it out, and then they'd hook it up. But prior to that, they had a couple of instances where maintainer and I was up helping him at Soledad, Paul Vaughn. He was quite a character, and we were coming along, it was 1957, and he had a brand new pickup, company pickup, coming along. We'd gone to Salinas for something, coming back. I looked down, I could see a hump in the rail. So I told him, I said, Paul, turn around and go back. I said, why? I said, I think I saw a sun kink. Oh, you dumb Portuguese, you don't know what you're doing. We come back, there it was, and they cut 18 inches out of that rail to make it settle down. So then they went in the preheating system, and that's how they come out of that. Because when that ribbon rail, they had a special train to take it. All the cars hooked up, and that was quite a thing gone. Now you find welded, we call it welded rail, the ribbon rail all over the country now. That's the common thing because they got rid of those joints where the pounding and you get low spots. That's a great defeat they did against getting rid of the rail joints.
He did. It's too bad I didn't put a meter on him. He walked hundreds and thousands of miles of track.
Yeah.
Because once he gets called by the clerk and says so and so, the light is red. His signal so and so is red. So off he go. But it isn't. You just can't find the problem right away. You have to get on the track and walk, check everything, and finally find like a broken bond wire that has to be replaced.
Or sometimes you find a broken rail.
Yeah, whatever, but you have to do walking. You just can't, oh, I think that's a problem. You really have to. And poison oak, oh, every time he had to climb a pole, there's always poison oak. And he just looked at the poison oak and he would get it, so he was calamine lotion.
You got that by the case.
Yes. I almost had him drink it. Maybe it would work better. I don't know.
One time we were talking, she was talking about broken rail out here at Callender, which is between Guadalupe and Oceano. I got up early in the morning, got a call early in the morning, went out there, says, the signals are red. Well, I went out there, I walked the track, come back, was in the office here at the RE building that was my office and got another call. So another guy and I went out. So he was on one rail and I was on the other, looking at and come along on this rail during the morning when cold, it would expand out, but during the day it'd heat up, and it was a V chunk, about 2.5 inches. It was just sitting there on that deep enough where a train had come along and driving in. And that, I cut that piece of rail about 6 inches long with that thing in, and gave it to my signal supervisor. And he says, God, he says, you know, when I read your overtime sheet, I was wondering what were you thinking about?
Making up stories.
Yeah, so I kept that. And another thing is, a dear friend of mine, he was a division engineer. They have a rail detector, like outfit that shoots electronic into the rails. And they were up on Calendar Hill, or going up there. They says that operator says there's a flaw in this rail. So they horsed around, drug. All at once, this Japanese fellow was on the rail detector. He says, Sid, you see something I don't do? And I said, I don't know. What are you doing, Tom? He said, feel this. And the web of the rail was bowed, and there was a fracture right in the middle of that. And don't know how long it's been there. So I had talked to Roadmaster. I told him, I said, I'd like to have that rail. And I said, I'm going to cut some up. I'm going to send it to the division engineer, because he was the head of the electronic. So we cut it up. The fissure was right in the middle, and I cut 1.5 inch pieces like that, and I sent it to him. Pretty quick, he sent me a brass belt buckle. First one they ever saw like that. So, and if it ever broke on that Calendar Hill, they'd have cars all over that country. But it was that detector car pays for itself. They, of course, they modernized them all now. The company had one. It was an old clunker, and they took and electronic company out of Oakland says there's a one in Australia, the most modern one there. So they brought it here. We changed a lot of rail in a few months here, because most of it was fractures, these that you couldn't see with your eyes. It was amazing, and to this day I still knock myself for not keeping one of those for myself.
Yeah.
The division engineer, he was one nice guy, and he come out and he says, you and Tom did my day. So
No question, you were a valued employee.
well, it was just the years. Like, I used to have a supervisor, little smart Texan. He just says, you know, get you and Frank together. He says, I can have a lesson from you. I says, yeah, it'd be nice if you listened. Yeah, we've seen a lot of officials come and go. Some of them are good, some are just like anything else. So, but you get most of my experience with through the railroad career is working for the old timers. Those old timers, they'd listen to you. They wouldn't question you. If I've got sheets of overtime that I kept just for a record at my house right now, and every once in a while I say, well, I'm not doing too much. I'll get those out and look and bring remnants of the times thing.
Yeah, I think last time we had mentioned something when our oldest daughter was just about 2 until she was 5. We didn't want to move, but his job was up in the Watsonville area. In fact, I think they were on the siding in an outfit car, remodeled like a home on wheels, you might say. So it was a foreman's wife, the signalman's wife, and and myself. On Sunday, we just fix a great big stew or roast. And on Monday morning, the three fellows would go up to this outfit car and work there in the Watsonville area the whole week. Then they'd come back Friday. And when Beverly was small, Sid would come home and I said, "This is Daddy." And she'd say, She wouldn't know him. By the time she knew him on Sunday, he was off again. And down in the Vandenberg area, when he got called out, a lot of fog down there. He came home and he said, "Boy, I almost made you a widow." And I said, "What?" He said, "I'm walking track and it's windy and it's foggy." And he said, I felt like somebody was staring at me. And I looked and he said, "There's two military men with guns telling me to halt." Because he was on the Vandenberg property, but he was walking track. And they said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "What are you doing here?" "I'm working." But he said, I think they were getting ready to shoot or something. Just really petrified him. But I guess they must have seen someone walking on the track and...
See that, prior to the Air Force coming in South Vandenberg, it used to be a Marine base. And,
Camp Cook.
this was on the South Vandenberg. That's because that's the Air Force took over south of the San Ynez River to Conception was the Marines. So then after they left, the Air Force took over. But that's when they put that, like for the missile firing, that we had like a little guard shack at Casmalia and another one down at Sudden to house the maintainers out of the weather. And we had a phone, which eventually you guys are going to get from me, that we'd have a phone there and one at Casmalia, and the train master, assistant train master be at Surf. And they were working with the operational officers at Vandenberg. And when something happened, one time I told Charlie Neal, poor old folks guy, he's gone. I said, "The missile's coming." He said, "What are you doing?" All at once it come out of the chute. Then he says, "How'd you know that?" I said, "Well, the dogs in Casmalia was howling."
Yeah.
So that was quite took me a little while to figure that out, because the dog can feel it on the pads. So
Well, I can imagine flaming missile debris across the rails might short out your
Oh,
signal
yes.
circuit, but I've heard that often there's a problem with, especially in foggy areas, you'll get a little rust on
Yeah.
the rails, and a whole train will shunt your circuit, but just a motor car or maybe an individual locomotive won't.
yeah, see, like those motor cars, they were quite a little piece of machinery. The first one that was assigned to me was all wooden except the wheels and part of the frame, and it sits right now at Oceana
The Railroad Museum down there.
Railroad Museum. Forget her name, Linda Austin. Quite a story about that. I was going to not the civil engineer, the mechanical supervisor says, we're going to give you a new motor car. I says, "Yeah, why?" He says, "Because that's outdated." He says, "It'll fall apart on you." So John Loomis and I are very dear friends from Royal, and he says, "I'd like to get that motor car." When I told him, so I called it signal supervisor or automotive supervisor, and I was telling him, and he says, "Well, what is it on? Who wants it?" I said, "Well, he's got a little tiny ghost town in Rio Grande. His brother was our local sheriff, Bill Whiting, George Whiting's brother. So one thing led to another. So I called Mr. Long. He was our superintendent. I told him what. He said, "What is it?" I said, "Well, it's a little ghost town I said, he's got a little ghost town of his own. And he says, you know, that's very interesting. I says, next time you're up this way, I says, stop at Guadalupe, and we'll call John, go take a run. So sometime later, Mr. Long come up, and he says, well, here I am. I said, okay. So we jumped in my company pickup, called John. He said, I'll be out there. John was a rough Marine. He was 100% Marine. Nice guy. So took him out there, and about a week later, here comes a posted official letter. And it was give me the authority to, when I replaced my motor car, John had got it. Well, John had it for a few years, and then when John passed on, I talked to Lindy, his wife, and I says, you know, that has got a personal feeling. And I says, Oceano would be great, because John was a local. So we ended up bringing it to Linda. The motor car sits down there now. That, I forgot what year it was, but it was a 15 or 16 motor car.
Wow.
And see, and all the other these new motor cars, they come out aluminum and all this, and starter. Well, those didn't have starters. You had a crank like a Model T, and of course it had a magneto, and you had to be pretty careful on backfiring on the magneto. You had to have that advanced just right. So, well, you got my experience, my time.
And we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Got any more questions?
I think we're coming up on a good stopping point.
Yeah, excellent stopping
Uh-huh.
point, actually.
Okay.
God, wonderful.
I think this is about, as Hewell would say, this is about the best one yet.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it is, yeah.
You mean I beat Bob McIntyre? No, Mac's
Have you
all right. Yeah.
interviewed Mac?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you
Yeah.
have?
Yeah.
How about Jim, his son? No.
Yeah, well,
He was here and he had a few things to say. We'd
Yeah.
like to get, there are 3 generations of McIntyres.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
The youngest in New Mexico, I think, working for
Yeah.
BNSF. But we'd like to get them all
Yeah.
here someday.
That would be
Yeah.
good if you get
See, there-
pictures of them.
Mac just lives across the track from me out here at Hathaway.
Yeah. I don't know. Sid used to say when we first were married, they had the Malleys at that time. And everything would vibrate in the house. The floor furnace, the pictures on the wall,
bet.
you know. I thought, my gosh, what is that? He said, hey, as long as they're moving, I'm getting paid. Don't.
She'd complain. She said, I got little black spots on the sheets. So at that time, the old time clothesline out there wasn't a modern dryer then. That was out of my class at that time.
And he went through a lot of floods, believe it or not. We had a lot of floods, 72, 74. Rails floating like. And now where's the rain this year? Or last year, or next year, I don't know.
See, talking about this, we used to call it East San Luis out by Edmond. No longer exists. They pulled all that rail up, all that big siding. And East San Luis is just outside of Orchard Road here.
Right.
Yeah, but I could remember Mr. Charlie Neal. He was a train master. He was an old Texan or about different things, and he almost got fired from the superintendent. Then he was telling how important that was there. He says we could hide a train out there. When something happens here, we would do it. Oh, no. Well, it's too much on taxes then. That's when we start getting the smarter people in there. And of course, taxes going up too. Another little instant happened, just come to my mind, is out here, they call it Owl Creek. It's on that little creek that comes down by the garbage company, comes into Bryce Canyon. Local train crew come in and says that there was high water out there in Owl Creek, almost to the rail. Oh, they got old me armored out there. It was a big culvert plug. I'm not bridge, a round trustful bridge. So I went out there Oh, of course, I had a motor car. I didn't have to walk like some of them other people did. So went out there and I saw this, and the crevice of the creek like that, and it had some willow trees. And what caught my eye, and to this day I still should have kept that picture, was an old crow's nest. And it was there, and it was like it floating in the water. And I took that picture, and division engineer, one of the dearest friend of mine, Rudy Widman. I called him and he says, well, can you bring a shovel and unplug it? I said, Mr. Widman, you're going to have to swim. And he says, oh, we'll get somebody out there. Okay. So got some crews out there. Well, ended up, when that thing unplugged itself, it made like a roar of a train coming down.
Wow.
But I had that picture, at that time, I always carried my Polaroid camera, which you don't have now. And I had that Polaroid picture, and I showed it to him. He says, well, let me have it. I said, no, I can't. That's mine. He said, no, it's not. You took it on company time. And he took that picture down there and proved the point of how dangerous it was in our area. Yeah, they had, and that was quite a project. They even made a new, it used to be a kind of a rock crust like that, but with the rail in the middle. Well, they moved one whole side to fill in the hole where the water was.
Yeah, and a lot of times there's like ranches along the area. There's a cow on the track. There's a dead cow on the track now. So you had to go out there and somehow or other, it's fun. I said, why do you have to pay the owner? He should have kept his cow.
Yeah.
Why did the railroad?
The railroad
have to pay?
had to maintain fences on the right of way.
Oh, really? Oh,
That was
yeah.
a must.
Yeah.
They had at Lumpo for years. They had a fence, what they call a fence gang. At the point.
I was going to ask, was that the section crew or you?
No,
had it?
they had a regular fence crew. The section crew nowadays would have to do it because they haven't got over. But they had a Lumpo. They had a 5 or 6 man gang.
Wow.
There was one lady that lived in the
Oh, yeah.
Bryce Canyon area. She called Sid before the railroad would. He said, you guys killed my best bull.
she had your home number.
Yeah, Mrs. Avila, she's passed on. He's passed on, and their son, Junior, lives in Cayucas. He has a ranch up there. But one time, there where PG&E plant yard is right now, they had a road down there and it comes over there and across into their field. So this is a winter time. So here comes a gang and they were going to do this and do that. And I said, don't go down that road. I said, that is a private road and it's a mean lady. Oh, this one guy wasn't a local man. That's what used to really foul up our friendship up here on the right of way. He said, oh, no, he said, the railroad can go any place. Fine. So they first he sent a semi. was going to take some rail down to and I says, hey, you're going to go in that ditch. Oh, no, it's not that wet. Well, they got down there. They don't forget it. We had this black adobe here. When it goes, it goes. So they're going to have a truck slip down, gone in the ditch. So then they set it what we call them a pettibone. It's a tractor with wheels. Come down off of her top road and come around. To go around it, he got in front of that truck to pull it up. Well, we had the pettibone in the ditch. Guess who comes along? Mrs. Avila going to Pismo after her mail. And she's a dear friend. She just blew her cook.
Up one side, down the other. He said, boy, they were all cooked.
So
Well done. They were
she
well
says,
done.
who the hell's in charge here? A friend of mine out of Santa Barbara, he's the roadmaster. I says, Sonny, you're up. He went there, boy, she ate him up and down. He says, I can't do anything. He says, I didn't do it. It was this general foreman that was on the gang. So after it dried out, got Joe O'Kelly to come up, do the, and she says, now, why don't you have him do all my crossings like that?
in Guadalupe, they had a lot of vandalism. Of course, that happens everywhere. And I don't know who he spoke to. He says, you know, those cross arms, you know, they keep breaking them, they do this, do that. And they said, Sid, get some paint and paint a
Yeah.
small cross.
The wigwag, on the wigwag banners, this Ray Nuttall was his name. He was out of Arizona, New Mexico, in that country. And he got tired of the desert, so he come up here. Well, they're always breaking those limbs out of those wigwags with rocks and stuff. Until he told me, you go up there and put a little black cross. He's a little.
They're very religious.
The little Mexican kids are religious.
and that solved the
That's-
problem.
That's all of it.
Except the insulators. I mean, he used to say, somebody's target practice.
It's kind of hard to get up there and do a little
Yeah.
Now, I want to know, did you take a picture of that dead cow on the track so that when she got a phone call at home from Mrs. Avila asking for you, she knew you weren't
Yeah,
making up
oh, yeah.
stories?
Yeah, I said,
And
it's
one
Mrs.
time-
Avila. He said, I said, it's Ida. Oh my gosh, something's dead on the track or something like that.
One morning at 2:30 in the morning, this is during the rainy season, she called. She says, "There's some lights down on the railroad track." Oh, she says, "Yeah." She says, "I want them showing some people out of it." So I called the sheriff's office. Okay, I said, "I'll meet you at Mrs. Avila's gate." We got down there and I could see flashlights up there. Well, they had a section crew out patrolling the 10-degree curve where the big ditch is, and they were going down there, had flashlights, and Mrs. Avila lives up on top of the hill. She looked down and I went down there. Talk about a couple of little scared Mexicans. I says, "Felix, what are you doing down there?" "Oh, what are you doing?" I says, "They're up there with guns." And he could see the sheriff's car up there. I says, "You didn't call Mrs. Avila." I says, "I've always told you guys, when you go into the Avila Ranch, always call her. She doesn't care what time of the day, as long as she knows what's going on." Yeah, she was a dear friend. She's gone there all the.
And those 42 years went quickly. They went slow, but then they went fast.
Okay.
And
After,
now it's boring. Huh? We're getting boring.
now you can pick at it.
All right.
Not boring to hear about. It's